Welcome back to our channel, friends. We are Himalayan Hipsters, and this is episode 8. Today, we're going to talk about social issues and norms and how that creates so many other problems in our lives and people and our personalities in general. If you have been listening to us so far and enjoying listening to Himalayan Hipsters, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Also, you guys, please don't forget to leave a comment and let us know how we are doing.
Today, we're going to talk about social norms and expectations that our society imposes on us, and our parents enforce them on us, and so does our schools, and basically everything around us. Whether it's gender norms or beauty standards or how we're supposed to do things in a certain way, all of those things have such a bigger impact on our lives, and we really want to dive into that today.
Yes, and also we're going to talk about what all of these high and unrealistic expectations, what it's actually causing in our society, the impacts that we're having, as you mentioned, what it's doing to us and our generations, our future generations.
And our children, our nephews and nieces, everyone. It really impacts everybody.
And if we don't act on it now, then that's like how we talked about generational trauma. That's going to continue for years to come if we don't act on it now, if we don't be the change now. So yeah, that's what we're going to discuss today.
And some of these issues and, societal norms and expectations, they're not just a Nepali thing or a Himalayan thing. A lot of these, standards are also like an international thing. We find these standards of society everywhere. But we're going to focus on our, Nepali culture and Himalayan culture and how it has affected us. So let's just start with the very first thing we're expected to do in our society, right? For me, something that I really hated is this expectation to be super obedient and good and always smiling and always being polite. And I feel like that was not such a great thing in my experience because it prevents you from having the ability to stand up for yourself when something isn't right. We're taught not to ask questions and not to challenge authority from such a young age that when we are older, sometimes I find myself still
doubting yourself.
Doubt myself. Yeah, exactly. So that I can make other people comfortable. Or, there's this thing like making myself smaller to fit in spaces so that other people are comfortable.
You're already lowering your standards.
Exactly. You're lowering your standards. Yeah. I feel like instead of teaching kids to be super obedient and stuff, we need to teach kids to have their own opinions and teach them how to, know the difference between wrong and right instead of telling exactly what's wrong and exactly what's right. Then they'll never be able to find that out for themselves. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the first things I think I can think of, because obedience is such a rewarded trait in our culture. I'm sure you've noticed, Saika, like when you're young and you're obedient, people praise you. Oh my God, she's such an obedient child. What does that even mean? I don't think that's a healthy way to raise children at all.
Yeah, and I think that's the expectations of society itself, because that's for them. You see a kid and that's the norm for, what a kid needs to be obedient. And that spreads like wildfire. That literally the obedience as the new social expectation of what your kids should be.
I think it starts with that, right? It starts with when you're a kid and you're told repeatedly to be obedient, repeatedly to be obedient. And then you grow up in such a toxic society that has so many expectations that are really not great for you, right? How do you differentiate between what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing when you grew up in such a toxic environment? And you've been told repeatedly to be obedient, you're not going to have the strength to fight oppression, right?
Because in the end of the day, that's what they know. I mean, that's how do they know that's right, though?
Exactly.
That's the thing, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, later, when we grow up in our culture and women are, married off to live with the guy and his family, the trait they're looking for is obedience, right? No matter how much oppression she receives from the guy's family, no matter how much abuse she receives from the guy's family, she's told to be obedient. And so a lot of times women don't even speak out or stand up for themselves because we praise this obedience. Sometimes they think that them taking the abuse, it's my duty to be an obedient wife. It's my duty to be an obedient daughter-in-law. Like these things start from when you're a child. They're teaching you be obedient, be obedient. It's like a conditioning so that when you grow older, you're easily manipulated, right? People can manipulate you easily because you've been taught to be obedient. And that's the first thing we wanted to talk about. I think it's really bad.
I think that stems a lot. And even from our culture, and I feel like the term obedience, I think it should be just taken out of the whole vocabulary.
Absolutely.
Like it should be taken out. Because
absolutely.
Obedient is basically you are being submissive.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And that terminology, the obedience, if you go to countries, even here, like, you need to be obedient.
Yeah.
We need to be obedient by the law. I mean, I think it goes really, really further along, but I think for us, we take it to the extreme.
Exactly.
To the extreme.
If you are scared to challenge authority when the authority is wrong, that's not okay. We need to be able to ask questions, as we've been saying over and over again in this podcast.
At first, the kid doesn't even get to decide and choose what he or she really wants. The expectations overclouds all the judgment and all the choices that a kid can make.
Yeah, exactly.
Because of the expectations.
Yeah, and the reason, I thought that obedience is the first thing I wanted to talk about is because once you've made a child obedient to everything you say to them, it's so easy to manipulate them into the perfect, the perfect human being to live in this society with norms and standards. They're going to obey these standards. They're going to obey these norms without questioning it.
And pass it on.
And
we ask ourselves is like, why things don't change? Why things are the way they are. It's not right. Because psychologically it has impacted us. It really has impacted us. What a great start to these expectations, starting with obedience.
Exactly.
Because I think that will trickle down to a lot of things that we are going to talk about today.
You're right. And once you make a child obedient, right? Their first memories, you've conditioned this child to be obedient, and you've conditioned this child to the norms of society. Instead of building them up, we start breaking them down and making them feel like they're not good enough. We start, in our culture, we start comparing children to others. How many times, Saika, when you were a kid, have you heard, oh, but the neighbor's kids are doing this and you're not?
Exactly. Chimeki ko chora chori. Have you heard like the term chimeki is our neighbors?
Mine was always orkaku. Orkaku chora chori.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Usko chimeki ko chora chorile kasto राम्रो गर्छ. That means basically like, look at your neighbor's kids, how good they are doing. Or why can't you be more like them? Why can't you dress like them? Look at him.
They're so obedient.
They're so obedient and always being compared. I think
I was not only being compared to other people's kids, I was being compared to my parents because I was raised by my grandparents. They would be like, when your aunt was your age, she used to do this. When your dad was at your age.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, first of all, that was a long time ago. The world is different. I'm not going to be doing exactly the same things that my dad was doing when he was 10. Like, are you serious? They didn't have cell phones. Okay. They didn't have internet. Come on. It used to piss me off.
No, but it's true though. I mean, even going further down to your neighbors, you're being compared to your cousins.
Yeah, cousins.
That's the worst part.
Or themselves.
I mean, or just saying like, when I used to be a kid, I used to go and help my mom, my dad, blah blah. And one of the things that we did prior to coming to recording this episode is that we reached out to our closest and dearest, our friends and families, and opened this forum about saying like, what were the expectations?
We asked our friends.
That we had. And they basically, came back saying, if we really had not been compared to our neighbors, then we would have we lost the opportunity of being really good friends.
Oh, right.
We lost the opportunity of making memories with them. What would have happened? Like,
because they've built an environment of competition. It's always about competition, right?
Even people who are mature, married, they're older, they compare themselves to, what he or she has. Oh, her husband does this and this. Why not me? Oh, his wife does so much. And why not you? I think the comparison, like just comparing, I mean, it starts from kids, but that psychological impact has gone through even when you are 40s and 50s, and that the cycle does not stop, right? That's sad. That's so sad.
The first decade of a child's, like, human being's life, I think it's so important because that's when you learn the ways of the world. I mean, even until you're 15 or 16, 17, 18, whatever, right? When you're young, that's when you really know the world. You get to know the world. You learn. And when you are teaching kids to be obedient and you're teaching them to compare themselves to others, we already live in a society, engaged in social media. We're talking about how social media has impacted our own self-image. Now imagine beyond social media, your family's always comparing you to other people. Ugh. How are you going to build that self-esteem for yourselves? We need to be building people up instead of breaking them down. As parents, especially, they're your only way to learn the world before you go out into the world. And I feel like sometimes parents do more harm than good, even though they're doing it out of love. They're just doing more harm than good, because instead of building your kids in their self-esteem, instead of giving them confidence, instead of encouraging children to find their own way and follow their passions, you're breaking them down and telling them they're not good enough. You're not as good as the neighbor's kids. I used to do so much better when I was your age. I feel like that's very unhealthy. I don't think they ever thought about the psychological effects.
Exactly. And I think also, I mean, yes, parents should do and treat us and teach us the right way. Coming back to that is, do they even know the right way? Because our grandparents compared the shit out of them. So that's the only thing they knew, is to compare us. And that's how it continues. And
it's been a cycle.
We need to be that driving force. It's been a cycle. And I think in the later, in this episode, we're going to talk about how do we really break these things and where do we even start, right? I mean, can we really blame our parents for this? Because they were not taught better. They were also being compared, and that has trickled down. And we are seeing some changes, especially in my inner circle and parents taking different approaches. We are seeing, but not in the amount of, the change that we really
need more
want.
people to start.
But we need more people. Exactly.
When you brought up whether we should be blaming our parents for this, the way I feel about this is that I feel like, just as a society in general, we're so selective with the things we want to change, right? I feel like as a society, we've adapted to so many changes. Internet, computers, for example, things that make our lives better, we adapt so easily. But then we are so hesitant on making changes that will kind of go against your beliefs and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I feel like this, but our parents weren't raised this way is I feel like that's just an excuse that we're using to kind of take responsibility away from change. Like, no matter how you were raised, no matter how difficult your life is, none of those are good excuses to oppress other people or abuse other people.
True.
True. Parents who are abusive towards their children. I don't care how they were raised, no matter what, it's not acceptable. And I feel like, just as a society in general, these are the conversations. Again, we started this to have conversations, start difficult conversations. And yes, this is a difficult conversation because it's hard to just challenge people around you and challenge your parents and stuff.
Exactly.
But I think these things need to be talked about more, fuck respect, like fuck being obedient.
Yeah.
We need to really start making a change, because so many children are at risk here, right? So many children are growing up without the self-confidence and just being torn to shreds instead of building them up. So, there's this argument I hear all the time of but that's just how they are. That's not a great excuse to do any of these things, I think.
Because in the end of the day, the environment has also changed. And we are expected to adapt the environment and be, part of the product of our environment. But I feel that there are still, our parents and our, society, they're still stuck with that same mindset.
I just think that this is just how it is, and this is just how it has been done, is not a good excuse for abuse. It's not a good excuse for causing harm to others, or Yeah.
Sure.
I personally think so. So when this happens, everyone should be speaking out, because I feel like we see so many things that are wrong in our society and we never speak out. For example, the way we treat women. All right, let's move on to how we have such high expectations on women and girls. I mean, they're responsible for everything, right? From a very young age, they're told to be modest. Our society has such unattainable expectations on women and girls from a very young age. From a very, very young age. Let's talk about women's issues real quick in our society. What are the things you hear, Saika, or have heard in your life that are basically just imposing expectations on you?
Oh, yeah. You need to learn how to cook. Make sure you know how to clean. Make sure you know all your house chores, how you do laundry. Make sure you obey your in-laws. Make sure you are being a great daughter-in-law. Don't do anything wrong.
Right.
Don't speak up. Basically just don't do anything, but do everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of times.
What the hell?
Yeah. You know, I used to hear, as a girl, you should be doing this. As a woman, you should be doing this. Thodi manchi bhaera yasto garnu huँदैन, or something, right? Like, your brother can do it because he's a boy. Something like that. And
exactly.
It's just, oh my God. It was so bad. It was so bad.
It was everything. Even if you step out, like, there's already a cloud of expectations that just hangs over here. It's just like, oh, I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to do that. I have to do this. I have to do that.
Yep.
It's so difficult. How can women and girls have their thoughts? Because they're already expected to do a certain way. How can they even live their own life?
Yeah.
You know? And by the time that they do realize, half their life or 75% life is already gone.
Yeah, exactly.
Making them realize, and now it's like, okay, you know what? This is what I'm here for.
I have experienced the same thing. It took me so long to build up confidence, build up the courage. I was always vocal about my thoughts, and I always fought my family when I thought something wasn't right. But just in general, going to a job and having the confidence. Or sometimes, women are always apologizing for something they said, or always saying, oh my God, did I make sense? This lack of confidence, the self-doubt that comes with all of this, it really started at a very young age, because we were always trying to fit into all of these expectations. And these expectations are so toxic because, and going back to obedience and all of that, it makes women submissive. It just makes women so submissive, I think, from the get-go, from the very beginning. Women are expected to, in our modern society, a lot of times people will be like, oh, well, women already have freedom. But actually, those expectations from our society is still there. So even though women are allowed to go out and get a job and work and vote, they're still expected to come back home and cook and clean, right? So now, instead of women just having to take care of the home and family, they're also expected to make money. So it's like, when you talk about women having the freedom now, it's like people don't realize that, now they have the freedom to go outside and have friends. They have the freedom to get a job, but they're still oppressed at home. They're still expected to, be a wife, whatever that means.
Exactly. It's like you're saying that, oh yeah, we believe in equality. Now, my daughter-in-law or my buddy or my daughter, she's going out and having a job, but when you come back home, you're expected to do the same. So it's basically like getting a second source of income. It's like we've been saying, like, oh yeah, they have a nice job, they have a home, and also being compared. And they have a home, but then you come back and you expect to do exactly the same thing around the home. Yeah.
And how many times have we heard these things that people say, oh, that's a woman's job, that's a woman's job. Let the women in the family do it. That's not a man's job. Men aren't supposed to be washing dishes. And And it creates such a toxic environment, not just for women, but men are raised with this. And of course, they're going to be all like, dominant and act like they're better than women. Because you've raised these men with so much privilege that they think that it's okay to oppress women, Yeah. And one of my biggest fears is like a young girl growing up, looking at this happening and thinking, okay, it's okay for men to treat me like this. It's okay for people to treat me like this. Oh, I was born a girl, so I guess it's okay for people to oppress me.
And even after you are a person who can express herself very clearly, because it took a lot of practice, now you are more vocal about your opinions and your thoughts. However, you are still being told, she does her thing. It's not ever like being bravoed at what you do.
Oh no, it's You're always like, how Astha is.
Oh, yes. Because just imagine. I mean, I get that slam all the time. It's so easy to say that,
these backhanded comments, these backhanded compliments,
Everybody gets it. Oh my gosh, that's who she is. That's her thing.
Let her be her. Exactly. You know how her temper is. Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Yeah, because the thing is, even we are outspoken at times. Sometimes I have to shut my mouth. Yeah. But even at times when we are expressing ourselves, there's a comment that always comes with it. And that's so sad, like, of our society.
Exactly.
Right? And also when you said about how boys are at kids and being told they already have such a high standard, they've already motivated and inspired. Whatever they do is like, oh my gosh, shabas, shabas, thora, shabas, if we do that same to our daughters, imagine what would happen.
The heights like she can go. Yeah.
I mean, dude, like that. I mean, that would be like next level. Okay. The daughters would go next level if we were motivated.
One of the things that there's these things that people say when people say, "Oh, women are already equal," it literally boils my blood to the fucking core. Equality, it starts from before we're born. When people are pregnant and they find out that they're having a son, it's like, oh my God, I'm having a son. Sometimes parents don't like the fact that they're about to have a daughter,
And or it just pisses me off that when you have like girls in your family and they keep having till you have a boy, it has happened to have an heir to the family. It just things like this. Yeah. I mean, it's just small issues that has become the norm. Okay. That's
why don't we question it?
And we don't question it. We just say,
obedience. It goes back to obedience.
To be this way. I mean, like these expectations never stop.
It's just an endless list. Stop. Some of our viewers and listeners might be thinking, "Oh my God, they've been going on about this forever." Yeah, because there are so many, standards that our society has put imposed on women. It's never ending.
Yes.
And if we hear these things so many times, like, oh my God, women are always talking about these issues, or like women are always mad. They gaslight us into just taking things for what they are. Right? We need to change these things. We need to burn these systems down and find a better way for equality. But when we start talking about these things, people almost like they call you a bitch, they call you call you an aggressive woman, an angry woman, a nasty woman,
a feminist.
Exactly. They call you radical for asking for just basic human rights. And my mom was vilified by my dad's side of the family for being vocal about issues. She was painted as this horrible woman for having a job and being out late and drinking alcohol, which I'm like, I do that all the fucking time, and to think that just a generation before me, like my mom was vilified to the point where, her life was just completely like taken apart just for being vocal and just for being a strong woman. There was no place for strong women in our society when she was young, and I am sure there are places that it's still not okay. I'm privileged to live in a place where I
Right.
can be vocal about these issues and have the freedom. But it just pains me to think that someone, or my mother, for example, was vilified and painted as a horrible person just doing the same things that I do, and I don't even think about it twice. Like, I don't even think about going out to dance at a club and drinking, a basic thing that we just do now, right? It's so normal.
By the way, your mom is my inspiration. Like I told you, I think I tell you all the time. She's one of the most strongest women like I have ever met, because she doesn't give a damn. She doesn't give a shit, but she cares about the community. You know, as soon as you feel like, oh, women should have that same amount of respect and the same amount of love and support to their careers, and men should be also helping and supporting, you know, your family, doing some chores around the house. If you kind of bring that idea, they go jitters. Oh my god,
Exactly.
oh my god, like that, because you're challenging their belief. They're already shunning us away.
Man, exactly. Like, I just remembered something I really, really wanted to say, is that men are allowed to make these mistakes, you know? Like, men are allowed to make so many mistakes in our society, because exactly what you said, that's how men are. Men are weak. Sometimes they're going to make mistakes. But if a woman made the same mistakes that a man did, right? Oh my God, she's like the worst person ever. They start talking about her character. When, like, for example, a man cheats on his wife, the wife is just expected to forgive him. Oh, you know, men are weak. He made a mistake. How can you just give up your entire family because the man made one mistake? That's how men are. You're the woman of the family. You need to be stronger. You need to keep this family together. But then if a woman were to cheat in a relationship, in a marriage, in Nepal or in a Himalayan culture, if a woman were to cheat instead of a man, they start talking about her character, and they literally like paint her as this awful human being, and she brought shame to our family. But when men do those things, like, they just kind of like slide it under the rug. They're like, oh, you know, my son. Women are never allowed to make mistakes, you know? Like, we're always walking on eggshells. Like, we can't make mistakes. We always have to be perfect. And men, on the other hand,
We have to be a perfect
we have to be
being.
fucking perfect all the fucking time. Like, not me, bitch. That's how I feel. And that's how I've always felt.
I've also heard. Okay, so your husband is shit and he treats his family crap. It comes back to his wife.
I know.
तिमीले किन राम्रोसित नभन्न सकेको?
Exactly.
Why can't you? I'm like, excuse me, mother, you're the mother, and you should be telling your son.
Exactly.
And now it's like as if like all the trauma shit has been transferred to the wife, and now the wife has to make this son who has so much mental and emotional and psychological issue to make this man perfect.
Yeah.
And like in the almost of the quarter of his life, eh? That doesn't make any sense.
When that happens, and in these situations, when the woman is just taking this abuse and just taking all this shit, then they're going to be like, wow, gusto ramro buhari, she's so obedient. You know? Comes back to this fucking obedience thing. They turn women into these submissive, obedient beings, and then they get rewarded for just taking abuse and just living life as it is, instead of fighting for what's right. And as soon as a woman starts fighting for what's right, then she's painted as this horrible person.
Yeah.
You know? As a bitch, as this aggressive woman. Oh man. And
I know. And I don't want to go there, but I do have to go there. Freaking periods, dude. Periods.
Oh my God.
Like,
oh my God, that's a whole other
menstrual cycle of a woman. It's because we are giving birth, people. It's literally a woman's body preparing a birth of a child.
My God, thank you for bringing this up, because more than half the population of the world are born with female reproductive organs.
Yes.
And that means that more than half the population of the world has periods, yet we are brought up to never talk about it. You know, we're supposed to be down in the hush hush, like, oh, don't talk about your periods. And I'm very vocal about my periods, and I go to work and I'm like, I'm on my period. Like, I can't perform at my 100%, you know, but But growing up, like, I didn't know what periods were until I had my period when I thought I was about to die. Like, I didn't know what periods were until I got mine, you know?
Yeah.
Which brings me to think, like, what the fuck are you doing, society?
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? You know? Oh man, this period is a whole different conversation, you know, MAIJU, because
Yes.
I've had a lot of struggles, but thank you for bringing this up. I just feel like our entire social system was just like created to break people down mentally.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you repeatedly break people down until they become these fucking puppets. That can only function when in a society that's already given. Like, we can't ask questions, we can't change anything. You know, since we're talking about women's issues, we also should definitely talk about men's issues and the standards and the expectations we put on men and boys from a very young age.
Yeah.
And again, you guys, like, we are going to be talking about these issues in much more detail in our future episodes. Today, we're just scratching the surface on social expectations and the norms that we grew up with and how that affects us and all the problems those create. If you are enjoying listening to us so far, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We can't wait to bring more amazing conversations to you. Don't forget to share this with your family and friends, because I really think that we need to have these conversations more.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to be talking about these things.
And please leave a comment below to let us know how we are doing, because we absolutely love hearing from you.
So yeah, men's issues, right? I feel like as a society, expecting things out of men and women as soon as they're born obviously is not the right way to go. That's just how we do it. But since we've been talking so much about women's issues, like, we're not saying that men don't have issues of their own. Like, we do understand that boys growing up have to deal with a lot of societal expectations as well.
Exactly.
For example, boys don't cry. You know, like, boys are not supposed to have emotions. They're supposed to be strong. Like, oh, you are my son. You're going to be a man one day.
Yeah.
You know, you've heard that so many times.
So many
you got to be a
times.
man, you know?
Yeah. You're not
And what
supposed
does that
to
even mean? You got to be a man.
You're not supposed to express your emotions. Boys are not supposed to cry. Men are
man up.
Man up. What else? You are going to be the breadwinner of the home. All of these stuff that boys are being told at such a young age. So much pressure of not being able to do what they love as well. In our culture, our sons are meant to take care of their parents when they grow old, right? So from a very young age, they're expected to know that, like, you're going to be taking care of us one day. You have to be very successful. And I think we put that pressure on sons. Like, my other friends, Asian friends, have this pressure too. They're like, oh, I'm the only son. You know, I'm the only child and I'm a son. So I know so many male friends who have basically given up their own passions and things that they want to do in life just so that they can take care of the entire family. I just think overall, all of these expectations are so bad. They're so toxic. Like, I haven't heard a good enough argument for why they're okay. Yeah.
And even when I used to talk to my family and I would challenge these things, I would always be like, listen, like, I'm willing to listen to you. I'm willing to understand you. Give me a good argument of why is it okay to do these things? Why is it okay to expect women to do this and men to do this? Give me a good argument. And the thing is, they haven't even thought about it. Actually, they're just doing it because it's been done.
Because it's been done. It's the expectations and it's the
no
norms.
one has ever given me a good answer. And if you have a good answer for this, put them in the comments below, because I haven't found a good answer yet.
Yeah, what is it? And just imagine the fact that when they're being told that you shouldn't even show an ounce of emotions. What does that do to a child from a young age? Psychological impact.
Exactly.
Psychological impact to the sense of when they grow up, they can't really express or channel those emotions. Who is the victim there? All those things is going to go to their near and dear ones. That's what he sees when they come in after, a long day of work or after having a fight or something. And then there's no way to channel that and just either really take a wrong path of, drinking and beats his wife, beats his child. Because they are being told to not really express their emotions.
They don't have an emotional intelligence. Yeah, they don't know how to
channel those outbursts of.
I think
they don't know how to communicate.
They don't even know their emotions. Right? It's like communicating their emotions is like so far off. They don't even know how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And it just builds up, turns, you've heard the term toxic masculinity. And I feel like a lot of times we blame men for toxic masculinity when in fact we need to be blaming the norms of society that creates an environment to foster toxic masculinity. Instead of blaming individuals, it's really like, if you know there's a problem, like how many times have you heard toxic masculinity, feminism, equality? We talk about these things, but we don't do anything to change the norms of society. Like it's not about an individual doing something. It's like, I think we need to go back to the roots of the problem. The root is always the culture.
Yeah.
It always is. It's always the norms. That's always the root of these problems.
And also, have you heard that, there are guys, there are wonderful, wonderful men out there who are actually, who's all in support and who's actually, helping their wife or their family. There are men out there who understands all this is crap. Like this social norm and expectation is crap. And they are being told that they
are considered weak. Yeah, they're considered weak. Your wife has manipulated you or something, That's one of the reasons why toxic masculinity exists too. I think young boys want to prove their strength from a very young age. Then we get bullies. They're either the bullies or they're either getting bullied. And for men to not get bullied in school for being a weak man, they start becoming the bullies. They start becoming aggressive. And from a very young age, they are rewarded for being dominant. They're rewarded for being strong. They're rewarded for being a man. And of course, they're going to grow up thinking, oh, okay, so like I'm a man, so I'm supposed to be aggressive. I'm supposed to be dominant. I'm supposed to be strong. And so many men who abuse their wives and girlfriends or whatever, they've been built to become this character. They've been conditioned to become this person. And then when this happens, we just like blame that one person instead of being like, look, this happened because of our social norms.
Exactly.
You already know the answer. Do something to fucking change this. You already know where this is coming from, right? But then these people talk about all these issues and then they go back to their families and then do the same thing over and over again. They treat their sons a certain way. They treat their daughters a certain way. They tell their daughters, oh, you shouldn't be wearing this because guys. Stop blaming women for men's behaviors. I think that's one of the other things. It's like we put these responsibilities on women to fix, after we create these toxic masculine people, we create these characters, and then now it's a woman's responsibility to fix it.
Yeah.
Like, why are you creating problems and then expecting other people to fix it? Let's just nip it at the butt. Like, let's just change how we do things so that we create a better world for everyone.
I've never ever heard, Astha, I've never heard that we were okay. I've never ever heard that. I've always heard,
right.
Oh, you got fat.
It's either you're too skinny or you've gained weight. Yeah.
Oh, you don't eat much. Every single time you go to Nepal and you hear this everywhere. It's just like, it's like, you're never okay. You're never a okay human being. Either you're fat, your hair is falling apart, you dress a certain way.
Not only that, have you noticed how when like if a couple is married and then they go back home and the man lost some weight, they're gonna be like, oh my God, is your wife not taking care of you? Is your wife not feeding you? I'm sorry, is this a grown ass man or is this a child? Like, why are women responsible for the health of a man? Can y'all not take care of yourselves? Like women are always expected to look perfect, but they're never perfect. And like people are so quick to make a comment about your weight. These questions are only asked to women, and for men, it's always they're talking about money and business. And it's like for women, we can only be talking about our weight, makeup, hair, like how do we look? How do we clean the house? And then when people are talking to men, they talk to them about more important things. You know what I'm saying? But,
and it's just, there's one thing when I went back, it says, Kati Mortako. That was like
oh, really?
That was like, I swear to you, that was like a tagline as if it was on my forehead. And it's like, Oh my
Yeah.
God, gusto mota
Everyone's
ko.
saying it.
How fat have you gone? You're fat.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what it
Yeah.
is. And so, oh my God, you're fat. Oh my God. Oh yeah, mota hai, see? That was as soon as you see them, I said, namaste. Mota hai sa. Like that, I swear. I mean, I literally got body shamed everywhere I went. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Like family, friend, everywhere. It's just like,
Yeah.
dude, I was happy with my body. I'm happy. I love my body.
And now you're like questioning yourself, probably like,
Yes.
did I really get fat? Do I look fat? Yeah. And the
Yeah,
thing is, like, it's
exactly.
already hard. It's already hard in modern world to like be confident in yourself, right? There's obviously we're not going to go there, but it's already hard. And then you go and then people are body shaming you left and right. And it's just like, of course we're going to have body issues.
Exactly.
Like, duh.
And it's just a non-stop. These comments are just nonstop.
I can't find anything positive to say right now. Like, you know,
I really, I do like, okay, I don't want to say it's an excuse. I mean, I know they were not told to treat women certain way, to give equal rights. They followed this thing and they're so comfortable with it because change brings uncomfortable, the privileges are gone. But psychologically, mentally, emotionally, these people, these human beings that we're talking about is also battered because they've gone through those shit. Because, I mean, I understand. Like I said, I understand that there is absolutely no excuse for them to beat their family, treat your kids a certain way. There's absolutely no excuse, right? And psychological impact and mental health is so important, being able to express your thoughts and emotions. But if this person, they've never had this conversation, how can we expect that change? How can we expect that thing? So, I mean, I want to be the good cop and say that, you know what? And I don't want to say that, that's an excuse and, they should be doing that.
No, yeah.
But how do we change that mentality and be okay? And how do we start breaking these cycles, guys?
Exactly. I mean, that's what we want to ask our viewers and listeners. Like, we obviously feel very passionately about these things.
Yeah.
How do you think we can change this? How do we break this cycle of toxic expectations and just, like these standards, these norms that we've been living with, but we obviously know they're not okay. We obviously know they're not working, right? It's not working. In fact, it's causing more harm. So how do we change it? And if you think you know how to change it, are you doing anything in your life to change it? Like, are you starting these conversations? Are you talking to your parents and elders about these things? Like I am, a lot of times, again, peace, I feel like is this concept of peace was created by oppressors so that the oppressed would just be peaceful and just take it. I mean, I understand the concept of peace, but if violence is being opposed on me, why am I supposed to react in peace? Like, why can't I cause more conflict to start change? I really want to talk about this. Like, for example, the oppressed is always expected to be the bigger person. Is always expected to, be the bigger person. You have to be the bigger person. Oh, you need to keep the peace. But like, somebody else is causing violence, inflicting violence upon me. Why am I supposed to keep smiling? I don't believe in that. Like, so personally, the way I think that we can start breaking this cycle and creating change is by honestly, like, starts with this conversation. This conversation we're having, maybe be a little more gentle about it than I am, right? But have these conversations over and over again. Like, I think as a society, we're so conditioned to have small talks, right? As soon as you start bringing something big and deep, the room changes. Like, she's always like so serious, like blah, blah, fucking blah. They're always so fucking serious. You're not going to talk about anything important, and fuck small talk. Like, do you really want to spend your life doing small talks with no meaning? Like, we need personally, this, the reason I'm saying this is because you can't change anything if you don't question it. If you don't know what's wrong. All right. Yeah. And now that we know what these problems are and what these problems are causing, we got to have conversations. So start these conversations with your friends, start these conversations with your family, with your siblings, with your neighbors. Even if they don't agree with you, they don't agree with you, but you're going to plant a seed. They're going to think about this later.
Absolutely.
And if you are starting conversations, if there are young people in your family, for example, nieces, nephews, your children, they're going to grow up seeing you bring these conversations up.
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to be motivating these kids, and they're going to be thinking, even if you don't change an adult, you might be helping a little child be like, oh, okay, so this is not right. That somebody is saying this, something different than what I've been told.
Exactly.
You're going to give a different perspective.
Exactly. That there's a different perspective out there.
Yeah.
And just try to put yourself in their shoes. Just try to put yourself that your daughter might be treated the same way that I'm being treated right now. Or if my son or if my mother is being treated like that right now, how are you going to speak up for your mom? I mean, that's how you're going to start changing. Because unless we don't feel that impact ourselves, we don't get hurt ourselves, we don't have the heartbreak ourselves, I feel like nobody's going to talk. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes and say that, would you want to be treated like that? If you see your aunt being treated a certain way, fight for your aunt. If you see something that's not right, put yourself in their shoes. I mean, talk about uncle as well. Talk about, your brother as well. If that expectation is so much on somebody, speak up for that person.
I feel like if there are men out there listening to this, right? It is your duty, actually, to speak up, because you live in this privilege. You have the privileges that we don't have as women in the society. So you can use your privilege to start talking and starting these conversations. For example, if a woman were to start these conversations, for example, if a daughter-in-law were to start these conversations in her husband's home, she would be, vilified. But if you are a man and you start these conversations because you have the privilege of not being judged, or you have the privilege of making mistakes and being forgiven, you have that power, you have that extra privilege to bring up these conversations.
Your privilege. We are seeing more of these men coming out and speaking up and really saying that, this is not right. We are seeing that, but we are not seeing enough. Use this privilege to really give that avenue and create that space for your women, your daughter, your sister. Create that space for them so they can stand up and talk about it.
Some men will be like, and I've heard this many times before, they're going to be like, oh, but that's just how my mom grew up. I don't want to hurt my parents by bringing this up. And so what you're really saying to me now is that you are okay that your wife is being oppressed. You're okay that your wife is being abused, but you don't want to hurt your parents. And by you saying that, what you're saying is that one person's respect and emotions is more important than somebody else's. Think about it. If you're saying, oh, but I don't want to hurt my parents' feelings, so you're okay for the fact that your wife is being oppressed, or your children are being oppressed, or other women in the world are being oppressed, what that doesn't even make sense to me anymore. So don't put those in don't put that in the comments. If you're going to put that in the comments, please do something better. Please come up with something better.
And I think that even saying put your wife, because the husband has not gone through that. The husband is not feeling that. Put yourself in your wife's shoes.
Yes, exactly.
Put yourself in your wife's shoes and say that if it was me, would I be doing this? Would I be doing all this stuff in my wife's home? Because your wife is coming to your home and doing everything, right? Helping out, taking care of the thing because it's the expectation. But would you do it? When we keep saying we are the change, we meaning not just the Himalayan hipsters, me and Astha, everyone from where we are. We have to talk about what equality means.
Have you heard? I did then what I knew best, but now that I know better, I do better, right?
Yeah.
So we can't just be knowing better and just keep doing the same old shit. That's called stupidity. That's called insanity. So it's time for change, y'all. It's time for change. Also, quickly, I just want to bring into these social norms. We've been talking about men and women, men's issues and women's issues and expectation the society has on men and women, these gender norms. And we've created this binary system, right? And we haven't even gotten to this topic of what about individuals who don't identify as man or as women? What if Like we don't have room for anything other than
Men or women.
men and women. Exactly. It's like people don't understand that just because I was born with female reproductive organs doesn't mean I have to be a certain way, right?
Yeah.
That's just society created those expectations from you, right? So that means gender and not biological sex. I mean, like these gender roles, like, oh, you're a woman, so you need to have this, and you're a man, you need to have these. That gender, the concept of gender norms is what created these gender roles. So by saying, okay, men are doing this and women are doing this, men have to do this and women have to do this, we're not creating space for queer people. We're not creating space for anything. We're in fact separating human beings based on what genitals you were born with. Like we are so much more than that, we're so much more than that. And that's why not only should we be talking about social norms and expectations, we should also be really talking about gender norms and how it is absolutely bonkers that we still follow gender norms. Like, fuck gender norms.
I mean, can you imagine, because of these gender norms, how many men and women have gone and probably died without expressing themselves and never really understood
so
their
many
sexuality?
Not just their sexuality, themselves, right? In our past episodes, talked about mental health. We talked about self-care. We talked about power of choice. We talked about creativity. And every single time we've had conversation, it always comes down to knowing yourself, right? To make better decisions for yourself. But if we are born in a society that is always telling you what to do, and you have to kind of like tiptoe around all these expectations and all of those things, how do you even get to really know yourself? And you're absolutely right. So many people have probably come and gone from this world without ever getting to know themselves, without ever getting to express who they really are. Yeah. Not just in sexuality, just in life in general, just in their desires.
Because of these expectations.
Exactly.
Guys, we need change. We
need change. We demand it. We need you to have these conversations, y'all. Like, please. Yeah. And if you don't want to start these conversations, share this podcast, Share this so that people can engage in these conversations with us. Yeah. Send us any questions you may have. Send us any topic suggestions. And if there's anything you want us to talk about, drop a comment if you've been watching this. We really need that right now.
Yeah. And so on this episode, we talked about all the issues and expectations, society, the psychological impact, the change that we can bring, or how can we break the cycle. But we are going to deep dive into these topics, bring over guests. We just scratched the surface on this episode. We want to hear your feedback. We want to start a community in Himalayan Hipsters. So we would love to hear from you guys.
Help us build a community. If what we're saying and what we're talking about resonates with how you think of the world too, help us find a community and, share us with your friends and family so that we can keep doing this and keep bringing these conversations. We really do need the support, and awareness is key. The more we talk about these issues, the more conversations we have about these issues, the more we raise awareness that these issues even exist. I think a lot of people don't even realize that these issues are a real thing because it's so deep rooted in our culture that we do these things without even thinking. It's just it's the norm. Now it's become the norm. And the more we talk about it, the more we raise awareness. And the more we raise awareness, the more people will be willing to make a change, right? And so we can't just have these conversations behind closed doors, as we had said in our first episode. We can't just have these conversations with our best friends and then never talk about it again. We need to have these conversations with everyone. So help us do that.
Help us. Yeah, so if you have been enjoying listening to us so far, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all our social media platforms. And also, don't forget to hit that bell to get notified when we release a new content. So please leave a comment below, like we've said so many times, to let us know how we are doing, because we love hearing from you.
Thank you so much, you guys. You have been listening to episode 8 of Himalayan Hipsters. We can't wait to bring new content and new conversations to you every week. So stay tuned. We are Himalayan Hipsters.